Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Today in this video we will have a quick look and test the Deepcool Gammaxx 400 Pro CPU cooler. So I bought this Deepcool CPU cooler for my CPU. I've been running my CPU on this stock cooler for a long time now and thought I would let my CPU chill a bit more. In the box you will get a quick start guide, all the brackets and screws required for installation, and a wee bit of thermal paste, and the cooler itself. This cooler is big and has good weight to it. This cooler is compatible with both Intel and AMD. The cooler comes with two blue LED fans in push-pull configuration, and the fan speed can be controlled with this 4-pin PWM connector and can run at a max speed of 1650 RPM. It comes with 4 copper heat pipes and has a TDP of 180 watts. I did own a Deepcool cooler before when I had an Intel system, but this one looks and feels way better. Let's hope it performs way better than the stock cooler. Now let's get on with the installation. You need to use this backplate to install the cooler. The backplate is labeled with all the compatible sockets, so you need to find yours. In my case I'm using the AM4 platform, so you need to find these screws and install them in the respective cutout. This is how it will look after installing the screws. Now just insert it like this from the back of your motherboard. First you need to install the washers, then install the fasteners. Now in order to install the cooler onto the bracket, you will have to uninstall the fans from the cooler first. Then you need to install this AMD brackets onto the cooler. Don't forget to remove this protective sticker that's installed under the cooler. Now apply some thermal paste. I am using the thermal paste that came along with the cooler. That's from Deepcool. Now place the cooler gently over the CPU and tighten the screws. Once you're done with that, you need to install the fans back on the cooler. And connect the fans to the CPU fan header. In my case, I had to install one fan on the system fan header because this motherboard does not have two CPU fan headers. You can also get a splitter and install it. That way the push-pull configuration of the fans will work better. Sorry about the dusty motherboard. I noticed it while editing. The DSLR can capture way too much details. Now let's get on with the benchmarking. During the benchmarking I had 2 intake fans in the front and 1 exhaust fan at the back with the side panel open, and the ambient temperature in the room was around 30 to 32 degrees Celsius with the air conditioner switched off, and I had fresh thermal paste applied on all the combinations. For the first test, I switched on the PC and left it on idle for around 10 minutes. On the Ryzen 3 3100 with the stock cooler installed, I got a minimum temperature of 49 degrees and a maximum of 65 degrees Celsius. And with the Deepcool cooler, I got a minimum of 41 degree and maximum of 62 degrees Celsius. So that's a drop of around 8 degrees Celsius in idle mode. On the Ryzen 5 1600 with the stock cooler, I got a minimum temperature of 44 degree and a maximum of 64 degrees Celsius. And with the Deepcool cooler installed, I got a minimum of 36 degree and a maximum of 58 degrees Celsius. So again, that's a drop of 8 degrees Celsius in low temperatures in idle mode. For the second test, I ran the MSI CPU burner test for around 10 minutes to see the maximum temperature the CPU reaches. On the Ryzen 3 3100 with the stock cooler installed, the CPU reached a maximum temperature of 77 degrees Celsius, and with the Deepcool cooler, the CPU reached a maximum of 70 degrees Celsius. So that's a drop of around 7 degrees Celsius in temperature. Let's try the same test on the Ryzen 5 1600 with the stock cooler installed. The CPU reached a maximum temperature of 77 degrees Celsius, and with the Deepcool cooler, the CPU reached a maximum temperature of 58 degrees Celsius. So that's a massive drop in temperature, around 19 degrees Celsius. For the third test, I will render a video to see the maximum temperature the CPU reaches, because I feel that is the most intensive task you will do on your computer. So that's why I do a render test. On the Ryzen 3 3100 with the stock cooler installed, the CPU reached a maximum temperature of 81 degrees Celsius, and with the Deepcool cooler, the CPU reached a maximum temperature of 72 degrees Celsius. So that's a drop of 9 degrees Celsius in temperature. With the same test on the Ryzen 5 1600 with the stock cooler installed, the CPU reached a maximum temperature of 77 degrees Celsius, and with the Deepcool cooler, the CPU reached a maximum temperature of 61 degrees Celsius. So that's again a massive drop in temperature, around 16 degrees Celsius. Looks like the Ryzen 5 1600 is loving the new Deepcool cooler. For the fourth test, I ran Cinebench R20 to see if there was any difference in score. In Cinebench R20 with the Ryzen 3 3100, I got a slightly better score with the Deepcool cooler compared to the stock cooler, as you can see in this video. And it was the same with the Ryzen 5 1600, a tiny bit better score. So if your CPU runs cooler, the performance gets better too. For the fifth and final test, gaming, and what temperature would I get while gaming. So GTA 5 was the only game that I could think of and had it installed at the time of testing. So on the left hand side, I have the Ryzen 3 3100 with the stock cooler, and on the right hand side I have the Ryzen 3 3100 with the Deepcool cooler installed. On Ryzen 3 3100 with the stock cooler reached a maximum temperature of 74 degrees Celsius, and with the Deepcool cooler the CPU reached a maximum temperature of 64 degrees Celsius. So that's a good 10 degree drop in temperature with the Deepcool cooler. Now the Ryzen 5 1600 with the stock cooler reached a maximum temperature of 65 degrees Celsius, and with the Deepcool cooler the CPU reached a maximum temperature of 53 degrees Celsius. So that's a good 12 degree drop in temperature, and it looks like the Deepcool cooler is cooling the Ryzen 5 1600 better, and that gives you more headroom while overclocking. Not that it did badly with the Ryzen 3 3100. And if you have an air conditioned room with ambient temperature around 26 degrees Celsius, it will run even cooler. I feel the cooler is worth it for the price that it comes at. I will leave links in the description if you guys decide to buy it. That's it guys for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you guys in the next one. Peace.